Shalom. Welcome again to Secrets of Meaning, the podcast TV arm of Jewish Sacred Aging. I'm your host, Rabbi Richard Address. Thank you very, very much for joining us today in what I promise you will be a very enlightening and meaningful conversation, because I'm going to get right to this, Rabbi Dalia Marx. Rabbi Dalia Marx is the author of this absolutely wonderful, great book. It's really good in case you missed the subtlety there, called From Time to Time, Journeys in the Jewish Calendar. Rabbi Marx is the Aaron Pankin Professor of Liturgy and Midrash at the Hebrew Union College Jewish Institute of Religion in Jerusalem, Israel, where she's coming to us from Jerusalem. We are recording this on the 13th of May, and we're doing this real early because with the time difference, Rabbi Marx is going to Yom HaZikaron, and then this evening, which flows into Yom HaAtzmaut tomorrow. So first of all, Dalia, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Let me ask you just, how are you doing? Are you safe?
Hello, Rabbi Address. We're okay. We live in Jerusalem. Just the next neighborhood is a Palestinian neighborhood, and beyond everything else, we live together. In spite of what we see on the news, we are neighbors, and there's a lot of contact and relationship between people from here and there. And so this is hopeful, to be honest.
Yeah, thank you. The tragedy of a lot of this is that people they do live together, and they just basically want the same things out of life.
I believe so. Mm-hmm.
But that's another podcast for another time. I want to focus on this absolutely wonderful book, because I am conscious of the time difference and stuff that you have to get to. This is a book called From Time to Time. Its subtitles, Journeys in the Jewish Calendar. Let me talk to my colleagues, our colleagues around, whoever's listening to this, the directors of education, executive directors, cantors, etc., rabbis. This is a wonderful book for adult education. You could take this book and develop a 12-month curriculum around the Hebrew months. The way this book is structured lends itself to a tremendous amount of really meaningful conversation. Dalia, I want to ask you straight away then, what was the motivation for writing this book, and walk us through a little bit of the structure, because the structure of each chapter, which is around each of the months in the Jewish calendar, has some unbelievable resources, brilliant resources. So what was your motivation, and just explain how the book is structured?
Sure, of course. And thank you very much for having me here. I just want to reiterate that the book really is meant to be used as a teaching device. The CCAR created a study guide. A beloved student of mine, Audrey Horning, created a beautiful study guide to make it even more easy to use in congregational life, in family life, organizational life. I'm thinking about time. This is something we all sense, we all think we understand. None of us really understand time, how time works, how time moves. How come that sometimes time feels like it's flying, and sometimes it seems that time is stuck and doesn't move? What is the different aspects of time, and how time is experienced? And how can we really define time? This is something that is beyond our, I think, human capacity, both in terms of experiential aspects and the physical aspects also. So, and I think that time is something that is felt in a very intimate, individual way, but also it's a human thing. It's in every human being feels time. But I think that for Jews, it is especially meaningful, because this is how time is what really kept us together. With the lack of joint physical space. Throughout history, we did not have our own place for the most of the periods of history. So time is really what kept us together. Even now, we're dispersed in the four corners of the world, and we experience our lives as Jews, as human beings, differently. But really, time is what keeps us together. So, and especially nowadays, in Israel, and I think beyond also, we disagree on everything and anything. There's really a great amount of schism or disagreement on really everything. But if there's one thing we do agree upon is how we experience time. So it doesn't matter if you are secular, atheist, reform, conservative, orthodox, ultra-orthodox, whatever, you know when Shabbat falls and you know when Shavuot will fall, right? We're gonna broadcast it just before Shavuot. We know when Shavuot will fall. We agree upon it. We agree on it. And this is not something that we could say throughout history, especially with Shavuot, because Shavuot is the only festival during the year that does not have its own date in the Hebrew Bible, in the Torah, right? It doesn't say when Shavuot falls. It says, you have to count 7 weeks from the day after Mimochorat Shabbat, the day after the Sabbath day, and then this is Shavuot. Now, what is the behind after the seventh day? So the Hebrew Bible does not give us a specific date for Shavuot. We have to calculate when Shavuot falls based on Pesach. And this is also something that in the Second Temple period was a great source of debate between different groups within the Jewish people, how to count this time, actually. So the fact that we all agree upon the festivals and when they fall, when Shabbat falls, this is a great miracle in my eyes. And this is really what kept us together throughout history. Abraham Joshua Heschel used to say that Jews build cathedrals in time.
No, that in fact, you jumped to Heschel. I was going to, because one of the blessings of this book is this wonderful introduction by a friend of many of the people who will watch or listen to this, David Ellenson, of blessed memory, who many of us had the privilege of working with. And he wrote this wonderful essay introducing, channeling Heschel's statement that Judaism is a religion of time aiming at the sanctification of time. And this book really highlights how we as a people, as a civilization, sanctify time. It's extremely, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you. This is extremely important in our work, in the Jewish sacred aging work that we do, because as you get older, this concept of time becomes even more powerful, because we are at a certain age when we're very conscious of the time. We don't have that much time. Time is not like when we're 20. And it's very different. And it's the one thing, as we tell classes, no matter how hard you pray, you can't control it. You cannot control time. It's impossible. So
you should befriend it,
No, it's exactly right. This is why I wanted to have this conversation with you.
Yeah.
The structure, Dalia, the structure of basically each chapter is a month, and then you have a kavanah. Sometimes you have a prayer, a poem, and there's a huge amount of resources. How did you come up with this structure?
Well, this is a book to read and learn new things, but it's also, it has this liturgical aspect. I wanted to show the neshama, the soul that is within our sources, and how we can access the things that are beyond the text, or the things that are beyond the words. And that's why I brought the kavanah, which can be translated as meditation or something like this. And there's a poem of the month, there's a prayer of the month, and then we have what we called it, we kept the Hebrew word because we couldn't find a better English word, which is iyunim, that's deliberations or discussions of aspects in the festivals or during these months that we don't necessarily always talk about. I wanted to bring new stuff to the conversation. You mentioned that, I just want to go back to your previous point. You mentioned our beloved teacher, Rabbi David Ellenson, who was my personal teacher here in my neighborhood, the French Hill in Jerusalem. He came here with his family and he stayed here for a year. And that's how I got to meet him. And he was really part of my life in many, many stages of my life. The book is, in fact, dedicated to another great teacher of ours, Rabbi Aaron D. Pankin, who was the president of Hebrew Union College and a great friend and teacher of mine. So eventually the book commemorates these two great leaders, Rabbi Aaron Panking and Rabbi David Ellenson. I think this was really one of the last things he wrote before he passed away.
Yes, I think so. Yes, I think. And both of them taken too early, and both brilliant in so many different ways. Yes. You mentioned, Dalia, that in the context of each month, there's going to surprise some people as they open up to each month. There's a zodiac sign associated with each Hebrew month. Somebody's going to take and say, wait a minute. Why is there a zodiac sign with Cheshvan or Nisan? I thought we didn't believe in that. Talk to me about that. It's fascinating.
Well, I think the zodiac signs are based in a more cohesive way on the Hebrew month. And in the tradition of our great poets, each month had its own symbol, and each month was represented by one of our 12 tribes, and each month was represented by one of the 12 stones on the great priest. How do you call it?
The breastplate.
Breastplate on the high priest breastplate. So I included that. So we are now celebrating Shavuot. Shavuot is the month of Levi. That's according to the history or the tradition of the great poets of Eretz Israel, of ancient Palestine.
So, and again, this is the book from time to time. It's CCAR Press, and you can get it probably at the usual places where you get your books, but especially you can get to the press, CCR Press, or the great God Amazon. It'll have it for you. The subtitle Journeys in the Jewish Calendar, and the forward again by Dr. Ellenson of blessed memory and dedicated to Aaron Pankin, Rabbi Pankin of blessed memory.
Right, and you can download for free the study guide from the CCAR Press website.
Very good. That's very important. In the context of the book, there's so many fascinating things. We're not going to have time to run through all of them, but there's some stuff in here that's going to surprise a lot of people. So in the beginning, there's a section that you're writing around Yom Kippur and the Kol Nidre and incantation bowls. And I read that. So wait a minute. Incantation bowls and Kol Nidre. How do they come together?
Right. This is based on an essay I wrote before to one of the wonderful books of our teacher Lawrence Hoffman, and I try to track what is the essence, what is the origin of the Kol Nidre formula. And apparently it might, we cannot really prove it, but it might come from the realm of magic. People had these magic bowls written by a magic specialist and buried under the doorpost of their homes. In a way, it served as a mezuzah kind of in its function. And we find many of these in today's Babylon, in today's Iraq, in Babylon. And some of the texts on these incantations against the evil forces and against evil genies and lilies and malignant powers, some of these curses are framed very much alike the Kol Nidre formula. So there's a very good chance that Kol Nidre, as we know of it today, which we know it is a very central piece of Yom Kippur liturgy. It's not a prayer, it's a very dry legal formula, is based or originated in the realm of magic. Because we found similar formulation on magic bowls that are found in ancient Iraq, in Babylonia, and they are buried under the doorpost of people's homes. It's a little bit like the mezuzah in its function. And on it, there are all kinds of curses or incantations against evil powers and evil malignant beings. And some of them are very much like the Kol Nidre. So that can be that our Kol Nidre is based in the realm of magic.
Yeah, it's just fascinating. this is why I wanted to raise this with you, because so many of our people, we've never taught them this, that nothing happens in a vacuum, and that cultures and ideas were cross-fertilized for all of history. And
True.
The idea that Judaism has evolved and included aspects of mythology, demonology, astrology in our religious tradition, I think it's fascinating. And so that's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you about the book, because you raised this. Another fascinating idea you write when it comes to Hanukkah. And you have this little section on page 83 when you talk about Chanukiot and the midrash between Hillel and Shammai, and when you either light going up or you take the light down. And you have this wonderful interpretation that you use. You say you use this in your family. Talk to me about that, because I think it's very, very, very meaningful and very timely.
Right. I think that Judaism is basically a very optimistic religion. So we increase the light, right? The first night of Hanukkah, we light one candle, then we add another one. And the last night, we have a full Chanukiah. And that represents our very positive understanding of life and of our beings. However, and I think that, if you're talking about aging, this is also a part of it. We also feel sometimes that things are diminished. We begin with a lot of lights, and little by little we remain with one light that is very present and very strong. But sometimes the light diminishes, and I think our time in history, unfortunately, Rabbi Address, is time that we kind of feel that lights are diminishing, both here in Israel and I think also in your part of the world. There is still so many disturbing things and scary things, and sometimes we feel the light is diminishing, and I think this is something that is important to give place to give place to in our ritual, in our family lives. So lighting these two Chanukiahs, one next to the other, one with the increasing light and one with the decreasing light, is really representing, I think, in a better way, our human condition, our human experience.
Yeah, I first of all, I think this is a really magnificent symbol that we should all be doing now. Because again, you're right. It speaks to so much of what's going on and the human condition. And I really appreciate the aging thing too, because as we talk to so many people, they're very conscious of the fact that as people get older, certain things are diminished. They physically, emotionally, relationally. But that one light, I think the Bialik poem, the light of the God in the spark, the Zik Mutzal, is very, very powerful. And I thank you for writing that, and thank you for responding to that.
Right. There's a lot of beauty in it also. It's not just the reality. It's also something that is very beautiful, I think.
Oh, and extremely spiritual and very personal. Very, very personal. One of the other very personal things that you talk about as well is in the context of bedtime prayers and the saying of the Shema. And here we come again to a whole part of a chapter that you write about the angels that accompany us and the saying of the Shema and the archangels, the four angels that hover over us. Could you just talk about that a little bit, how you got to that, what it means to you? Because it's a beautiful part of the book.
Right. I think the bedtime Shema was probably the first prayer that I began to say every day. It goes back to the 73 war, to the Yom Kippur War. My father was in the war, and he was given a little book of Psalm, right, in a green plastic wrap. But at the end of this book of Psalm, there was the bedtime Shema prayer. Now, my father was not a very praying person, and I got the book. I like the Psalms, but I like the prayer even more. And it became really part of my personal practice to say the bedtime Shema and to add a personal prayer that I say along with it every night. And so I think it's really a prayer about protection, about feeling that you are encased with goodness. That's how I choose to understand the invocation of the angels. You know that in our Reform tradition, angels were big no-no, right? Everything that had to do with angels or Satans it was a big no-no. I'm not trying to say that I understand how angel functions and what are angels actually. But when you say that Michael is on my right and Raphael is on my left and Gabriel, is on my left and Raphael, that you kind of encase yourselves with good beings, and this is how you want to send yourself off to bed to sleep. I find it a very meaningful idea, especially when you do it with little children that sometimes are afraid to go to sleep. I guess children are afraid to go to sleep because they may remember something that we choose not to think about. Going to bed is a scary thing. You don't have a promise that you will wake up. So we need extra protection before going to bed.
So this is why my favorite nighttime prayer is the Hashkivena, because it's the same, the Sukkot Shalom, that keep anything that will harm from us far away. But I think you can combine this idea of what you wrote about the angels covering over you, keeping you, protecting you, and the Sukkot Shalom and the Hashkivenu, because you're correct. There's no guarantee of anything. There's no guarantee.
By the way, the angels too is something that is probably is originated in the realm of magic, because we have many incantations of people encasing themselves or wrapping themselves with beneficials or good entities. So this is also something we find in the realm of magic. I wrote a little bit about it. I wanted to go back, if it's okay, to one thing you said before about cultural vacuum. There are no such thing as cultural vacuums. If you have a cultural vacuum, by definition, it fills itself with the new content. And I think about Shavuot, which is the festival that we're approaching now. Shavuot is in many ways an orphan chag, an orphan festival, because it does not have, first of all, we mentioned, it doesn't have a date unto itself. And as opposed to the other two pilgrimage festivals, Pesach and Sukkot, each one of them is a full week, and each one of them falls on when the full moon, each one of them has two very significant mitzvot. For Sukkot, it's the 4 species and the Sukkah. For Pesach, it's the duty to tell, the Seder, to tell your children, and the Matzot. What is the special mitzvah for Shavuot after the destruction of the temple? It doesn't really have a content unto itself. And that's why Shavuot acquired throughout the generations really new meanings, and they're very creative and very rich. First of all, why do we celebrate the reception of the law on Shavuot? That's not in the Torah. That's something the rabbis added. And then you have beautiful descriptions from the Middle Ages from Germany of initiation, ceremonies of initiation of young children, young boys. Girls were not in this story, into the study of Torah. And it took place on Shavuot. So it was like a minor Sinai for each child. And the beautiful description of how you bring the child to the teacher. And then you have cookies in the shapes of letters, and you have a board with the letters and honey spread over it, and the child had to lick. So that was like a personal, private, minor reception of the law for children. And this idea evolved throughout the generation. If we think about the mystical tradition of Sfat, of the Lurianic Kabbalah, they initiated the idea of studying all night on Shavuot. That's the Tikkun Shavuot, because the Israelites back in the day fall asleep. They couldn't deal with this great revelation, and we are sort of making a tikkun, we're making amend, we're making a correction, and we stay up all night studying to welcome the bride, to welcome the Torah. So there are many, many new traditions that I try to talk about in this book, and then you get to Israel, to the young state of Israel, or even before the state of Israel, in the kibbutzim, where it became the festival of celebrating the new fruit not just the new wheat as it is in the Torah, but also the new fruit, the bikurim. So the mere fact that it does not have so many mitzvot unto itself opened it to new interpretations and understanding. And that goes back to what you said before about no cultural vacuum.
So the interpretations of the Chagim, you write about something that's very timely right now, because especially the day that we're recording this, and when we finish, as you told us, you're off to Yom HaZikaron and Yom HaAtzmaut observances. And you write in the book about something that you call the twilight hour, which I think is fascinating, and which is happening today in not today when this is being posted, but today when we're recording this.
Right.
Dalia, I would probably think that the majority of people of the Jewish community in the United States have never heard this concept of the twilight hour that you're going to today. What is that? What does it mean to you, especially this year?
Right. So the way it is structured in the state of Israel, you have the Memorial Day for the fallen soldiers and for victims of terrorism. Unfortunately, this year we're going to mention more than 1,500 more people who joined this terrible circle. And right when the day ends, the Jewish day ends and begins in the evening, we begin the Yom HaAtzmaut celebration, the Day of Independence. And really, there's like no gap between them. When this ends, this begins. And some people think it's a bit harsh. It's a bit cruel. The whole day here is very somber. There's no music. It's a very serious day when we commemorate our dead, and this year in particular. And when this day ends, you start all of a sudden with fireworks, etc. This year, I hope we will not have fireworks. Unfortunately, I wish the government would be more sensitive to the state we're in right now. But I guess they're not going to be really big festivities. But in normal year, it's a very drastic change. So many communities commemorate this moment of transition, what we call in the book the twilight zone, with a Havdalah service. Havdalah is a service that we celebrate at the end of Shabbat to distinguish between the holiness and the restful nature of Shabbat and the work and craziness of the week. But in a way, we draw from the holiness of Shabbat into the weekday, and we sort of blur the end of Shabbat a little bit with the mundane, with the everyday week. So in a way, this is also what we do with this special Havdalah service at the end of the Memorial Day for the fallen soldiers and victims of terrorism, and the beginning of Yom HaAtzmaut. And I think this year, honestly, Rabbi Address, I don't know how it's going to be played out, because we have to be so sensitive to everything that's happening, and we are in an unprecedented time. We're learning how to deal with it as we proceed. Right? We're in the trauma. I hope by the time you put it on your, you play this, we could talk about it in past tense. But right now, for 7 months, we are in a very traumatic time, and we're in it, so we cannot really talk about it because it's still happening. I hope
you're right.
Soon enough we could talk about it.
Like you said a while ago, Judaism is a religion of hope. The Aleinu is a prayer of hope, either a messianic age or a personal Messiah, however you choose to interpret that. But it is a prayer that ends a service in a sense of hope, and know that we're holding you in our hearts and our prayers. And whatever, and there's really nothing profound, but just stay safe. Just stay safe.
Thank you very much. I think what really gives comfort to many of us is the bridges between the two main Jewish communities in the world right now. And that's really touching, people coming from the States, communities, congregations, organizations coming here to volunteer and to help. We go to the States. And I think that this was one of my motivations with this book. You asked me why I chose to write about time, because time unites us all. Is the bridge building, and I believe that we will prevail. We will survive this too. This was hard time. This is a hard time in our history, unprecedented time in this time of the state of Israel. But Jews have been through worse, and we will prevail, hopefully, to the benefit of everyone in the region and in the world.
I'm so glad you did that. I mean, it's amen. There's not going to comment. And we're speaking with Rabbi, and before we end, Rabbi Marx, I'm going to ask you we didn't rehearse this, we didn't talk about this. These conversations are usually or mostly, just free flowing. But I know you have the English or the book. Could you open to page 355? I'm going to ask you to do something because I think it's a great way to close this. Again, this is From Time to Time. Available to CCAR Press. The subtitle is Journeys in the Jewish Calendar, a brilliant educational tool on so many different levels. And as Rabbi Marx said, you can download from the CCAR website the study guide. And the book is available for the usual places, Amazon, etc. At the end of the book, and there's another actually beautiful section in here on living a kosher, holy life. It's based upon Leviticus 19, that things that you can do to basically provide yourself a life of holiness. But the book ends, and there's some great glossaries in here too. The book ends with this afterword on page 355, if those of you who have the book and want to follow along. This is a magnificent closing Khatimah to the book. So what I'm going to ask you, if you don't mind, could you just take us out of this conversation? And again, I thank you very, very much. Could you read us this afterward? It's very timely.
In Hebrew or in English?
Let's try the English.
Okay. May we be privileged to walk along the paths of time over and over for many long years. May the ancient garden paths be pleasant underfoot. May we be wise and fortunate in tending the garden, deepening its roots. May we know, too, how to find new routes to follow, responsibly and with unending love. And may we be fortunate to have the words of this prayer come true in our lives. May it be that we go out in peace and as tried in peace and see blessings in the works of our hands and find grace, favor, and kindness in the eyes of God and our fellow human beings. Yehi Ratzon, may it be that the years that awaits us be blessed and good years, free of envy and malice, and suffused with joy and laughter, good health of body and mind, creativity, growth, and love.
Toda Rabba.
Amen. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may it be so.
It can. Toda Rabba, Rabbi Dalia Marx. From Time to Time, Journeys in the Jewish Calendar. Stay safe. Take care of yourself. And
thank you.
I hope to see you you're coming to the States, and if people would like to bring you to their synagogue, how would they contact you and ask you? Do they do it through the CCAR or you personally?
They can contact me through my email. I'm very easy to find, my HUC email, or through the CCAR press. That's very easy to find me.
Okay, that's probably the best way. CCAR. Thank you very much, Dalia. Just take care. Toda Rabba. Haslacha.
Toda Rabba. Thank you.
To all of you, thank you very, very much for joining us on today's edition of Seekers of Meaning. the podcast and TV arm of Jewish Sacred Aging. We appreciate your being with us. If you'd like to help us and support the work of Jewish Sacred Aging and continue the work of these podcasts, please go to the website, jewishsacredaging.com. There's a very conveniently located donate button. Just click on that, follow the prompts. It's really, really easy. Again, if you'd like to make a suggestion or become a sponsor of these podcasts, please email me, rabbiaddress@jewishsacredaging.com. A big thank you to our producer, Steve Lubetkin, because these podcasts are produced at the studios of Lubetkin Media in beautiful Cherry Hill, New Jersey. Until we meet again on the next edition of Seekers of Meaning, take care. Thank you for your time. In the meantime, stay safe, stay healthy, and most of all, be kind to one another. Toda Rabah. Shalom.